Moving story there on 7:30 last night. Now, the Prime Minister has just begun her address to the McKell Institute in Sydney. Let's cross live there now.
Present. John, thank you very much for that generous introduction. It's good to see you. I'd also like to acknowledge the Executive Director, Peter Bentley, who is here, and all the members and affiliates who are supporting the work here at the McKell Institute. And I'd particularly like to thank Slater and Gordon, with a real sense of affection, for having us all here today. I hope no one's going to find some files for me to do before we leave. I'm well out of practice, so I don't know if that would be a very good move for Slater and Gordon. 65 years since Bill McKell was last held elected office in this state, his story has much to tell us. He was a truly remarkable Australian who led a remarkable Australian life, from our meanest streets to the very summit of our society, or as his biographer put it, from Boilermaker to Governor-General. He was born in the same year as our grand party, the Labor Party, in 1891. He was raised by a hard-working single mum. He left school to help support his family at the age of 14, before winning a prize spot as an apprentice in the noise and heat of the railway workshops in Balmain. There he gained more than an apprenticeship in boiler making. He gained an education in Labor values. Bill McKell rose through the union movement and the Labor Party through his ability, decency and his integrity. At just 26, he became a member of the New South Wales Parliament, representing the inner city neighbourhood of Redfern. As an MP, he put himself through law school and became a reformist Minister for Justice. He served as party leader and Premier, uniting New South Wales Labor after the disastrous Lang split and leading the state through the Second World War. In doing all that, he created the model of steady and methodical, practical and progressive government, which became the template for his great successors, people like my own Foreign Minister, Bob Carr. In government, McKell expanded or created miners' pensions, workers' compensation, work safety laws and annual leave. He founded the state's first conservation department, saved the Macquarie Marshes wetlands and established Kosciuszko National Park. He extended electrification to rural areas and sat down with Chifley to help create the Snowy Scheme and the Commonwealth State Housing Agreement. A lifetime later, these achievements still benefit the people of this city and this state. You ask yourself why? It's because the great reforms endure. Friends, by next year, pricing carbon will be part of the lived experience of more than 860 million people worldwide. Polluters are paying a price. In Ireland, $24 per tonne of carbon. In Sweden, $145 per tonne from fossil fuels for heating. It's a reality now seen and understood by more than 500 million Europeans, more than 200 million Chinese, and starting this week, more than 20 million Australians. Now the facts are on the table. Indeed, they're on the kitchen table. For years, our people have heard extraordinary claims about what carbon pricing will be like. Now, Australians can finally judge for themselves. This is a point we reach eventually in debate about every reform. Progressive governments always try to make important changes for the future. Someone will always say it'll be the end of the world. When reform becomes reality, we find out who's right. The doomsayers said that universal superannuation was, and I quote, one of the biggest con jobs ever foisted by government on the Australian people. That the Mabo and Wick decisions would veto mining investment, that our Fair Work Act would cost jobs and threaten the economy. But Australians judge reform not on the rhetoric, but on the reality. After months of the doomsayers predicting chaos and preaching despair, the reality can now emerge. The simple facts can become clear. First, that our carbon price will cut carbon pollution. Because we now have a price on carbon, Australia's pollution will fall by at least 160 million tonnes a year in 2020, a cut equivalent to taking 45 million cars off the road. All the evidence shows that this is the right contribution for Australia to make to the global effort now. Our world faces real and urgent threats from climate change, like rising sea levels. A 1 metre rise would see 1 million people in our region on the move. Our country faces very direct threats too. Worse bushfire conditions and droughts, more days of extreme heat, increased cyclone intensity, bleaching of coral reefs. Climate change is a global issue, but it threatens us here, so we are doing our bit. Second, our carbon price will not only cut carbon pollution, it will strengthen our economy. I can see the world changing to cleaner sources of energy right now, and I know we must not be left behind. There is a clear threat to our future prosperity if our economy does not keep up. I don't want all the scientific and technical expertise we have, especially in solar research and development, only to benefit companies in China and India, Europe and the United States. I don't want precious investment funds to be lost to more energy efficient economies. I want Australia to develop and benefit from new technologies, whether that's energy efficiency in our commercial and industrial buildings and our homes, whether that's on our farms or in our food processing factories, even in our landfills and down our mines. And the sooner we begin making the transformation, the sooner the benefits will be felt. Did you know that the Chinese company Suntec, whose CEO, Dr. Jen Rong-Sir, was educated at the University of New South Wales, became the world's largest producer of silicon solar modules in 2010? Or that a decade ago, China had no sizable wind turbine makers, and now Chinese makers occupy 4 of the top 10 slots in the industry worldwide. These are individual examples of a worldwide transformation. In 2010, global investment in generating renewable energy, such as solar and wind power, overtook investment in generating energy from fossil fuels. We've got to start the transformation to cleaner energy now. With our price on carbon, we can forecast $100 billion flowing into renewables by 2050. The power of a market mechanism driving investment in the power of the earth, wind, water and sun. And revenue from the carbon price is funding complementary measures. This is a transformation incentivised by a price signal and supported by public investment. The $10 billion Clean Energy Finance Corporation will operate in the so-called market gap, opening up new opportunities for business to invest in clean energy technology and infrastructure. Financing renewable start-up projects, ones which in their very nature find it difficult to attract bank finance, will be the role of the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, and we will see investments like community wind farms, modelled on those already built in Hepburn in Victoria and Denmark in Western Australia. The Clean Technology Fund will deliver thousands of projects to help manufacturers modernise their businesses and cut energy use, and the Carbon Farming Initiative will support new methods for farmers to reduce carbon emissions and earn extra income. Under the Carbon Farming Initiative, Australian farmers have the opportunity to save carbon through proven methods: the environmental planting of native species, destroying methane generated from manure in piggeries, and carrying out savanna burning early in the dry season. And more such opportunities are on their way. Right now, private industry and our leading scientific bodies, like the CSIRO, are working to research and develop new ways to cut carbon emissions from the land sector, as well as new methods